Hello weirdos, welcome back to my channel. My name is Becca and today's video involves cartoons. So when we think of Hello Kitty, we think of a cute, darling little cat who goes on all of these adventures and has these cute little sidekicks, Deario and all of those, and all of the cute little kawaii little things that you can purchase that goes along with her. What we don't think about is murder and torture and decapitation, possible cannibalism, kidnapping. Those are just not things that we associate with Hello Kitty. However, in China, sometimes they do. So if those are all things that you are interested in and you'd like to know more about how Hello Kitty was involved in a horrible murder, then keep watching because you're gonna love this video. In May of 1999, a young, freshly turned 14-year-old girl goes to the Hong Kong Police Department. She says that she's being haunted by a young woman who is covered in blood. She's bound at the wrist by electrical tape and has been beaten severely. She's scared, she can't sleep, she's having nightmares, really wants to get this ghost off her back. Hong Kong police don't really pay too much mind to what the 14-year-old is saying. She's 14. She's saying she's being haunted by a ghost. That's ridiculous. It wasn't until the 14-year-old said that the only way that she could get this ghost to leave her alone was to confess to police that she had been involved in the torture and the murder of the woman. This is a story of Fan Man Yi, or the Hello Kitty murders. Fan had had a rough life from almost the beginning. She was abandoned by her family and raised in a girl's home. Realistically, she was probably abandoned because she was a female. In China at this time, and maybe even to today, having a female wasn't exactly the most desirable sex to have when you had a baby. They wanted men. They wanted something that was going to take on the family name. They wanted something that was going to help on the farm or help in the family business, and a female just wasn't going to be able to do any of that. So she was surrendered to the girls' home. By the time she was 17, she had developed a severe drug addiction. There, it's known as ice. We know it as methamphetamines. Being that she was 16, she was kicked out of the girls' home. She could fend for herself at this time, but not a lot of 16-year-olds can fend for themselves. So to support herself and her meth habit, she turned to prostitution. She worked in brothels, she worked in nightclubs, selling herself however she could. And when she was 23, she got a job working as a hostess in a nightclub. Now, when you think hostess, you think of the person that sits you at your table, gets your drink orders maybe. That's probably not what she was doing at the nightclub. This is probably a fancy way for her to say she was still prostituting to support her drug habit. Now, I've heard mixed reports, and I read it a couple of different ways, that she was either cleaning up her act. She did have a young son. She was cleaning up her act. She had gotten married, and she was trying to better her life. Other reports say she wasn't married. She had the kid with one of her clients, and she was still heavily addicted to meth and was just living the meth prostitution lifestyle. Either way, at this club, she was introduced to a lot of seedy underground characters, including the Triad. The Triad is an organized crime syndicate in China, kind of like a version of the Chinese mafia. They are vicious, they are violent, they are well known for not forgiving easily, and they are also known for being pimps and drug dealers. One of Fan's clients was particularly fond of her. In fact, he would only come and see her. But when he was high on meth, he would get really, really violent with her. And again, I've read a couple of different things. Either she accidentally stole his wallet or she stole it on purpose. Either way, she stole her client's wallet, and not only did it have equivalent of $4,000 in it, but it belonged to one of the top-ranking pimps and drug dealers in the Triad, and she knew she immediately had screwed up. She tried really hard to give the wallet back with an additional $10,000 as an I'm sorry, but the owner of the wallet, Chan Man Lok, was not ready to forgive her just yet. He said, in addition to the $10,000 that you gave me and the $4,000 in the wallet, I want an additional $16,000, or we're gonna come get you. She tried working extra hard to get that money, but she was not able to come up with the $16,000 in the time frame allotted, and she was kidnapped. Chan had 2 of his thugs kidnap her and take her back to his flat. He lived in a popular shopping district in Hong Kong, and although his apartment was a teenage girl's dreamland, it was a 5-bedroom apartment jam-packed with Hello Kitty. It had Hello Kitty blankets and sheets and kitchenware, everything a teenage girl could want in this 23-year-old man's apartment. It also had a lot of drugs, a lot of porn, a lot of video games, and it was completely run down. Not somewhere you would want to be. They were vicious to Fan. They beat and raped her for days. Initially, they were going to start their own little brothel, with Fan being the only girl that worked there. They were going to offer her to clients and friends and other members of the triad, and she was going to work as Chan's personal prostitute until she could pay off the money that she had stolen. While they were prostituting her out, they continued to beat her. They beat her with their hands, they beat her with furniture, they beat her with lead pipes. They would melt things onto her, melt plastic onto her, melt candles onto her. When they ran out of things to melt, they would just burn her. They electrocuted her genitals. They would force her to smile and laugh and say she was having a good time while she was being beaten. And they would rub and smear dirt and food and feces into her wounds. They also, on a couple of different occasions, forced her to eat not only her own feces, but the feces of the men. They would take breaks from beating on her to play video games and get high on meth and allow her to interact with her clients. But soon she stopped really being able to interact with the clients. She was beaten so badly, she was just completely disfigured, and she wasn't able to really do anything. She was so injured. So the clients stopped wanting to do anything with her. This really pissed off the 3 men, and they were having a hard time beating her because she couldn't stand up. They had burned the bottoms of her feet, so they were all blistered and infected, and she couldn't stand. So they got the bright idea to bound her wrists with electrical tape and suspend her from the ceiling. Made it much easier to beat on her. When they were not beating on her, they would store her in a bathroom so that she couldn't escape. Like, she could escape. She had crazy burns to the bottoms of her feet. She wasn't really going anywhere. On several occasions, a 13-year-old girl who was the girlfriend of Chan. Realistically, she wasn't a girlfriend. She was probably one of his prostitutes, but she was involved quite a bit with the torture. We don't know how much because the record is sealed because of her age, and we actually don't even know her real name, but she said that she one time had witnessed the men kicking, specifically Chan, kicking Fan in the head over 50 times. She said she got the feeling it was all just for fun, so she joined in, and she beat on Fan as well. This would later be the girl who turned all 3 men into police. She would actually score a plea deal for immunity in exchange for all of the details we know about the case. Everything we know about the case we got from this little girl. One night after a good beating, all 4 went out to dinner. They locked Fan in the bathroom so she couldn't escape, and then Chan, his 2 goons, and the young girl went out to dinner and went out for a night of partying. When they came back, the young girl went to check on Fan, and she had died. She was actually exuding this orange pus. You can find these pictures online. I'm not going to include them here. That's a little too much for YouTube, but you can definitely do a little Googling and find these pictures. They are disgusting. I'm sure it was just infection and blood just oozing out of her. She died. The men didn't really seem to care. They were a little bummed their plaything was gone, but they didn't care. They left her dead in the bathtub, and they went and got high on methamphetamines and played some video games and started to formulate a plan as to what to do with the body. Since she was already in the bathtub, they went back in there and cut her into little pieces. They then boiled her body in hot water on the stove, cooking all of the meat into little pieces, boiling the head until all of the skin was gone. It was just a skull. There's actually, the little girl had said that sometimes they boiled her body parts right next to noodles that they were cooking for lunch, or they would stir the head with the same utensil that they would stir their noodles with. Ugh. Once all of the meat had been cooked down, they kept some of her organs in the fridge. They kept her skull, but the other pieces, and they had done all this to avoid her smelling. They knew she was going to start to rot. They didn't want that smell. They didn't want anything coming, they didn't want to get in any trouble. So they cooked her up to eliminate the smell, which is actually kind of genius. Then they either disposed of the meat with just the household garbage, they fed it to stray dogs, or they turned it into soup and fed it to the homeless. They then took her skull and sewed it into a stuffed Hello Kitty mermaid. And then they left. The men didn't seem bothered with it at all. They went on with their life. They continued partying. They continued doing whatever pimps and drug dealers do for the triad. The little girl, however, was not handling it as well. She was having nightmares. She was feeling a lot of guilt. And this is when she went to police and turned in the 3 men. They were, of course, arrested. A trial ensued. Now, there are 2 different stories. All of the information that we have is from the little girl. She's the only one who says that all this happened. According to the men, Fan was consensually their only prostitute. She worked for them consensually. She agreed to all of it. And then one night she overdosed on methamphetamines. She was a druggie. She was addicted to meth and she just overdosed. It's not that big a deal. The only problem is that they panicked and they didn't want to get in trouble for this girl being dead in their apartment. So that's why they cut her up and got rid of her. So if you listen to the 3 triad men, she died by her own hand. She died from an overdose. And then we just got rid of the body. If you listen to the little girl, she was tortured to death and then they cut up the body. Either way, all 3 men got life in prison with the possibility of parole after 20 years. They did, however, get a charge of manslaughter, not murder, because according to the judge, the girl dying, regardless of how she died, the girl dying was not their intent. She did die under their care, but it wasn't their intent for her to die. So they got manslaughter, life in prison, parole after 20 years. Chan is actually a really dangerous criminal. He will not likely ever get out, but his goons maybe. They said they were just doing what they were told. They were afraid of Chan, which is believable. He's a triad pimp and drug dealer. He's scary. Either way, they're up for parole probably actually pretty soon, if they haven't already gone up for parole. So we'll see what happens with them. Now, as far as, so with the Asian culture, the Chinese culture, they really believe heavily in ghosts and omens and things like that. And they believed that since the little girl was being haunted by Fan's ghost, that she was a easily accessible spirit. She was tied to the spot where she died in the apartment. So the apartment actually became kind of a morbid tourist attraction. People would come, they would try and talk to the ghost, and over time, they got more and more disrespectful, and eventually they tore the building down. It was up for a really long time. It was up from 99 until 2012 when they finally tore it down. And then in 2016, they built a hotel in that spot. If you want to stay somewhere that's probably pretty haunted, staying in a hotel built over the remains of an apartment where a woman was viciously and violently tortured over the course of a month, then you should probably stay in that hotel. Seems crazy to me. All right, guys, that was the story of the Hello Kitty murders. Poor Fan Man Lee didn't deserve the end that she got, and I hope that everyone involved gets what's coming to them in the end. The fact that it involves Hello Kitty is really creepy because Hello Kitty is so sweet and innocent, and torture is the polar opposite of that, so it's weird to have both sides of life in one crime. All right, guys, let me know in the comments below what case you would like me to do next, or if there's a serial killer you would like to cover, or just let me know that you stopped by. I love it when you guys leave a comment. I love it when you guys let me know that you were here, or when you guys give me ideas. This YouTube thing is all still really new for me, so it's fun to see that you guys like what I'm doing. It encourages me to do more of it. I still have all of my merch available. I am trying out Linktree. It's the link that's down in my description box. It basically, you click on the Linktree link and it'll take you to a list of all of my links. It's a way to make my description box a little less hectic and a little more organized. So it's got my merch, it's got my YouTube channel link in there, it's got my TikTok link in there, it's got everything. So you can go in there, check it out. I'm also toying with the idea of either starting a Patreon or starting a YouTube channel membership, just to kind of help support the channel. There are some things that I'd like to make the quality and the content a little better. There's some equipment that I would like, you know, for recording and for sound and for light and stuff, just to make it a better experience overall. And, you know, I'd like to try to make this a career. I've been having a lot of fun with this, so it'd be nice to not have to go get a normal job, so I can just keep making creepy YouTube videos for you, and maybe I can make more of them. I don't know. We'll see. A girl can dream, can't she? All right, guys, don't forget to like and subscribe. Don't forget to hit that bell so you get notifications as soon as these videos come out. Sometimes I accidentally release them sooner than I mean to, and so you guys get them before everybody else. All right, guys, I love you so much. I know that none of us are saints, but everyone watching right now is friggin' awesome. So you've got that above everybody else. I love you guys, and I will see you in the next video. I hope you have just the best day. Okay, bye. Actually, it's really hot. I'm gonna go swimming.